That way, we can also include this on our website for those that aren't able to attend. So again, tonight's town hall is focused specifically, or this presentation is 7 o'clock, is specifically focused on the U8 pre-travel program that either your son or daughter is taking part in. So what I'm going to try to do is explain the setup of the program. Okay. I'm just going to skip this really quick. Don't want this. So the agenda for the evening. All right. There's a couple of things I'm going to highlight. Quickly talk about the WSA development philosophy and how we aim, maybe is a better word, to create a child-centered environment and what that means. What does it mean to play travel? That's something we'll talk about. If you have not gone through this before with older children, this is valuable information as you potentially prepare for what's ahead. As in, we go through the spring season. This program is run to help us form the U9 travel teams for the fall of 2022. Also touch base on what the actual program looks like the coming weeks. All right. You may have signed up your child. We've already started, obviously, but there may be some additional information needed, or we may need to provide a little more clarity on the actual program. And then if we have a little bit of time, this is often very valuable as well. We want to give you a chance to ask some questions. What drives us? Right? I always like to start with that. Obviously, we run a variety of programs. You may have children that have gone through travel already. Your children at a minimum have gone through U5, U6, U7. We are a big organization. We cater to about 2,400 players on a yearly basis, from U5 all the way through U23, from rec to travel to intercounty to UCFC. But there are certain key objectives that drive all that we do, part of our development philosophy. So the number one thing, we want to give our members a sport for life. I mean, I am still involved with this sport, the beautiful sport of soccer. Football is called around the world because I love the sport. And I know for a fact that for someone to stick with it in the years to come, it needs to be a good experience, a positive experience. And if you ask children what drives their participation, it's very simple. It needs to be fun. And that drives us. And that, is one of the key things that we always look to get back to. It's like, want to make sure that the experience is enjoyable. Especially now more than ever, we want our kids to have something to get excited about. Fall in love with the sport and, stick with this for the years to come. And whether that be at travel or rec or eventually UCFC, I don't care. We don't care. We just want to give them something to look forward to be excited about, provide them with a very necessary outlet. And as part of the WSA development philosophy, our objective is also to develop capable and confident decision makers. Soccer is really a sport in which the players need to drive the experience, a sport in which the players make the decisions. It can be coach-led, it can be adult-led. We really need to prepare the players to the best of our ability to become better on the ball, but also more confident in themselves and become more capable at making decisions. Soccer is a very dynamic sport in which a lot happens. If you are able to read the game well, you're more capable and also confident in your ability to make decisions. So those are two key things that drive everything that we do. And, it starts at U5 with an introduction to the sport, to an introduction into using the ball, to focusing on their ability to dribble. And from year to year, from every age group, we looked at layers to that foundation, so to speak. But these are the two things that drive everything that we do. All right. There's also, by the way, therefore impacts, I should highlight, the way we train, all right, the way we coach. And, it's even part of our team selection. We want to make sure that players are placed in an environment where they're best suited. And that could change from year to year, given their needs. And needs are both, in terms of ability, but also in terms of interest. Because, one could have a lot of potential or may be quite good, but maybe doesn't want to commit the time. There is a program for you there, right? Like this. It doesn't matter where you are. We're such a big association that we can provide something for everyone. All right. So in a nutshell, our WSA development philosophy. Now hopefully you take this in. This is a favorite of mine that I like to share. All right, so I do want to highlight, we just talked about how important it is that kids actually enjoy the experience. But unfortunately, and this doesn't apply just to youth soccer, but this is across youth sports in the US. We unfortunately, when I say we, the adults, struggle to get everything right. We struggle to put the children central to all that we do. As a result, that a lot of kids drop out from youth sports. Something that's supposed to be fun, enjoyable, becomes, I wouldn't even say demanding, but becomes something they don't look forward to anymore, simply because it's not about them, but it's because of the adults involved. And we strive to give as many kids an opportunity to have a positive experience and to stick with the sport, as I said before. But we, and as when I say we, I keep going back to we, it's us, the association, the coaches, the board members that are involved, our volunteers that are involved, but also our members and their parents. Right? Together, we can make this a really good experience for our children. Yeah, and that's what we aim to do. So this is, by the way, a reason, or these are some of the reasons why some children step away from sports altogether. And again, this is not just soccer, but again, important to highlight. If it's not fun anymore, why do it? Unfortunately, we as adults have lost sight a bit about what youth sports are about. There's so much you can gain from participating in sports. It's not just soccer, but obviously I'm focused on soccer now. But kids stop because it's not fun anymore, right? Often it's because they have no control over the experience. And I don't know, English is not my first language. Clearly, I misspelled that word, didn't even realize that till now. Sorry about that. But often it's because the adults take control. The adults determine what is necessary moving forward, and they make it about their needs. Often that means they make decisions to boost their own ego. That's why a lot of, in many of those instances, coaches focus on winning, putting kids at a young age in set positions already. Instead of focusing on the process, allowing them an opportunity to learn, it becomes outcome focused really quickly. And it's not just coaches. A lot of parents, unfortunately, seem to believe that winning is a necessity. And for that reason, a lot of kids walk away from the sport. Right? And that's, as I said, there's a huge emphasis on winning at all costs, unfortunately. Right? So again, sacrifices are made there in the short term that will impact the long-term development of players. Again, as I just said, kids being put in set positions, for example, or some players not playing as much as they should. I mean, you can tell me that at U9 or U10, U11, or even all the way through U14, like kids can't, assuming that they all work hard in training and all make the most of the experience, can get close to equal playing time. Right? It's ridiculous that some kids, and it happens in too many environments, in too many sports, are told that, hey, you may not be able to play today, or you're not guaranteed any playing time. What happened to youth sports? That winning is so important that we focus on that rather than teaching these children how to compete. I know so, and we believe that we want to teach them how to compete, but it's not at the cost of everything. Right? And there's a big difference between playing to win at all costs versus learning to compete. Right? And unfortunately, more than ever now, we want to see results now. Right? It's something in our culture, in our society now has come through where it's always about the here and now. And we're always looking to get to the destination as quickly as we possibly can versus looking at the journey, because in the end, the journey is more important than the actual destination. That's where you learn, and whether it is about the X's and O's and what you do on the field, or even the life lessons that you can get out of participating in sports. And again, it's not just exclusive to soccer, but there's so much you can gain from. All right, very important. And I go back to this all the time too. Is this what my child wants? All right, and I'll give you this right now. I have 2 children myself, and one of them wants to play baseball. That's what he wants. I'm not going to force a game of soccer on him. He loves baseball. Good for him. All right, and I'll support him all the way through. I just enjoy watching him play. But I want to make sure that it is what he wants to do, not what I want him to do. All right, just to give an example. All right, some trivia, and you can use the chat for this one. I'll monitor the chat. All right, hopefully the Winter Olympics are still fresh in your mind, because some of the 2 questions that I have are somewhat based on what happened recently in Was it? That wasn't China, I think, wasn't it? I believe so. And it's not about speed skating. Me being Dutch, that's my favorite winter sport. But question for you: which nation topped the medal standing? Oh my God, second mistake. At the 2022 Winter Olympics. And by the way, they also topped the standings at the 2018 Winter Olympics. All right. And again, if you can use the chat, see if you can provide us with the right answer there. All right, that was one person really quick. And it is indeed Norway. All right, Norway in the last two Winter Olympics has stopped the medal standings at the Winter Olympics. Now, one can say, you know, Norway is a country far up north in Europe where the conditions are favorable for winter sports, which is absolutely true. But a very interesting fact about Norway and the way they look at sports is that, you know, Norway is a smaller country than the US, I'll give you that. But the government actually put in a plan in place, sorry, to increase participation in sports. And it allows children not only to sample different sports, but it is all about the fun of participating. And, you know, there's thousands of kids playing sports in a variety of different clubs, but there is no competition or championships, or there are no championships introduced till they're at least 13 years of age, right? Where we are in our culture right now, looking to get everything in sooner, there's more competition at an earlier age. We're traveling further and further to get games in. In other countries, they seem to come to the realization that that is not what the children really need and want. And Norway is one of them. And, you know, again, they've been successful in the Winter Olympics, but even in some other sports, you know, whether it's in the Summer Olympics or, you know, in soccer and such, they've come a long way developing fantastic athletes who aren't burned out, first and foremost, but actually have a joy of participating, and it shows, right? So again, they figured something out. They figured out what needs to be done, I guess is the best way of saying, to increase participation and to also keep kids in sports. Second question, all right. Which nation produces, oh my God, it's the third one, I'm out. I think, Eric, you need to take over. Which nation produces more professional ice hockey players per capita than any other country in the world? And again, this is not just exclusive to the National Hockey League. I do want to stress that, although I believe as of late, it even applies to the National Hockey League up in North America, obviously. So again, use the chat. If you feel you know the answer, please, you know, use the chat and include it in there. Right? Again, which nation produces more professional ice hockey players per capita than any other country in the world? Nobody. Go on, take a stab at this. Someone here must know a little bit about hockey. Ooh, Switzerland. That's brave. Not Switzerland, but, you know, it is a European country. I'll give you that one. All right. So far, only one guess. Come on. It's not Canada. Canada for a long time used to produce the most professional hockey players per capita in the National Hockey League. But I'll give you the answer. I love it, Netherlands. There we go, Lindsay wins. It's Sweden. All right, so another Scandinavian country where, and again, this applies specifically to ice hockey, but again, just like in Norway, they came to the realization that the selection of elite players, so to speak, and this again specific to ice hockey, but it applies to some other sports in that country as well. That the idea of recruitment of players, you know, male players, that is, unfortunately, I don't have the stats on female ice hockey players. Quite a ridiculous idea to determine who is going to potentially be the next best thing, so to speak, before they hit puberty. Why we're selecting players and forcing them into elite competition before puberty. So no real selection of players is done before 16 years of age, with the result that Sweden is quite competitive in hockey. All right, and per capita, they now produce the most professional ice hockey players in the world. All right, and I think that even applies to the NHL specifically now as well, where it used to be Canada. So there's two countries, and again, they're smaller than the US, and maybe government has a little bit more control over, but they realize the importance of sports, and they realize the importance of creating a safe and healthy sports environment for the children, in which they're first and foremost are given a chance just to really build a love for a sport, whatever that may be. All right, Eric, are you up for this one? Because we talked about you taking this specific part.
Absolutely, yeah. If you just tab through, and
Yes,
then
yes.
between myself and Matt, I think there's one that the build, even if you if you go to the full build.
Yeah, I'm going.
Perfect.
There we go.
Excellent. So what's laid out here is really the fundamentals and the foundation of what it means to play travel soccer within the Westfield Soccer Association. And this is something that we consider to be a commitment, and it's a commitment that starts in the fall once everybody comes back to school, and it goes through the end of the spring season. So we are now just underway within the spring of our second, let's say, semester. Right now, the teams are playing their spring season, and then they'll conclude at the end of the season, and then we come back into the fall. So in the fall, there are 2 weekday training sessions and then 1 Saturday training session. The weekday training sessions are primarily run by the professional coaches, and then on the weekends, there's the professional coach that leads the age group, but also the parent volunteer coaches get involved as well. And then throughout the fall and the spring, there's approximately 10 games, 5 at home, 5 away. The teams could change between the fall and the spring. Now, we do provide winter training that is incremental cost to the fees, but it's something that our teams together during the winter time. And then there's a robust summer program that is put together that includes different levels of training, different camps, and different experiences for players to get involved with. So I'll kind of pause there and see if anybody has any questions just on the overall. What does it mean to play travel? What are the requirements? You can put messages or questions into the chat, or if you wanted to just wait until the very end, if the question comes to you while the rest of the presentation is going. And Matt, if I forgot anything or if I left anything out, please let me know. One thing I do want to point out is that we have a club administrator that works extremely hard with the other sports within town to really refine the schedule down to ensure that there is minimal overlap with other activities that go on during the fall and the spring season. It gets a little tougher in the spring because there are just so many different events going on. But from a standpoint of really working to make sure that there's no overlap, our club administrator does a really good job. And no, the games are not 11v11. So Ruben, that's actually one thing that we could probably have in here as we think about it. Age group, sided group. So US Soccer determines the size for play. So it starts off as 7v7 for U9 and U10. U11 and U12 goes up to 9v9. And then from U13 on, it then becomes 11v11. And the size of the field that the teams play on changes as that goes on. So traditionally, our 10 teams will play at Garwood, and then they'll move on and then move to Sid Fay, where you play, and then ultimately you'll play on Houlihan. So I believe that answered the first question. The second one is from is with regards to established teams and new teams each practice. And I think that's actually something that will come into the evaluation part of the discussion, Ruben, that we'll talk about.
Yeah, and that will also be discussed as we lay out the actual U8 pre-travel program. So you think there's anything else that needs to be added, Mr. Jutka?
I can take a step back, and then Matt and or Charlie, and I think I see, I'm assuming that's Alan as well. If Alan, if anybody has anything that I'm missing, please let me know. If not, I think we're good.
All right, I'll jump on this one.
I don't see anything over here.
All right, I'll move on with this one. So just so you know, as you enter travel, at a minimum, and Coach Mr. Jutka just highlighted this as well, every U9 travel team at a minimum gets a professional trainer assigned, a professional coach assigned, who's responsible for the 2 weekday sessions. There are Saturday sessions, as just outlined. Those are generally speaking done by parent coaches, and I'll touch on that quickly in a little bit as well. But they are overseen by at least one professional coach who will provide a curriculum support for the parent coach that'll help out. And then the professional coach comes to at least 5 out of 10 games, fall and spring. We're fortunate with the group of coaches that we have working with the association. We have a lot of very experienced, knowledgeable coaches working with us. And some of our best coaches are working with our younger teams, A through D, A through E, whatever it may be, because we truly do believe that all our players in the program deserve the best possible training. So we do include parent coaches in travel. We also still need some parent volunteers to help us with the Saturday program. Quite a few people had noted or registered as volunteers, but have not stepped forward. I'll touch on that shortly as well. But if you are interested in coaching in travel next year, it would be very helpful to take part in the Saturday sessions of the U8 Academy, U8 pre-travel program, as that will help you prepare for what's ahead as well. The coach selection, right? Both the professional coach as well as the parent coach selection is taken very seriously. Anyone that wants to coach does have to go through some training. Some of it is mandated by our governing body in New Jersey Youth Soccer. But we go as far as doing some interviews with coaches just to make sure that, along with what we said earlier, that we are able to provide our members with the best possible experience. And the coaches play a huge role in that, as you can imagine. All right, so moving on, I'm going to touch on the U8 pre-travel program as it is. So
Ruben,
this
I'm just going to jump in one second just on that. And I would say that with regards to coaching, you don't have to have prior experience with soccer. It's a benefit and it'll be a help. But at the end of the day, we're looking for people who are willing to volunteer, who are willing to help out, who are willing to play a role in helping to shape the experience that the players have. As Coach Ruben said, there's training that we'll provide you. There's mandatory training that you'll have to go through as a coach, but it is an extremely rewarding experience. I can speak for myself. I can speak for Matt. I can speak for Charlie. I can speak for Alan on the call that we've all been volunteer coaches. We've all been involved with the program, to the next step being as part of the Westfield Soccer Association, but we've all started as volunteer coaches, and it is an extremely rewarding experience being able to work with the players and see their development and sort of be an additional part of the team as opposed to just being a parent. So if someone has any interest or if you have a question about it, please feel free to reach out to one of us after the call and we'll hopefully answer any questions and get you connected with the right individual if you'd like to take the next step.
Thank you, Eric. All right, so going through the setup of the program, as it has already started, you hopefully are familiar with. That being said, we want to make sure, and we made some changes this year to the U8 program, all to make sure that it's both challenging and fun, to keep the two key items that drive a lot of what we do. And we want to make sure that as the children or the participants go through the pre-travel program this spring, that we're given a chance to assess and evaluate the participants accurately. Because these sessions that we do are also used to determine where players will potentially be placed for the fall of 2022. All right, so that's why this program is set up as it is. So currently what we have done, just like in the fall as well, if your son or daughter took part in the U8 Academy in the fall, but the training sessions for the boys are Monday, Wednesday, the girls train Tuesday, Thursday. This is also aligned with the current travel training schedule for both the boys and girls teams, U9 and U10. So you would create a little bit of consistency there as well. Then these sessions are largely used for the evaluation of players. Players go through the sessions led by the professional coaches working the program. Professional coaches will also complete an evaluation every weekday session on the players that they're working with. And to ensure we can, get the best information or the most reliable information on each and every participant, we do rotate them through the training groups, depending on the time slot that your son or daughter is training, because we want them to be exposed to as many different players as possible, rather than working with a set group Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. But that's a big part of the selection process. Now, what we're trying to get into is on Saturday, we want to go into some league play, which starts 4-a-side. We'll go into 5-a-side and eventually also some 7-a-side play. What we want to do is eventually go into some, I don't want to say set teams, but we want to make sure everything is balanced for that program so we can get, again, some fun but also challenging games in. Also to get the kids more familiar with the idea of playing games. This is under the supervision of professional coaches, but this is where we can still use the help of parent volunteer coaches. The parent volunteer coach will be supported by, guided through the experience by the professional staff that's there. But again, for the success of, we can use more parent volunteers. And as Eric said, it's not so much about what you know about the game. The most important skill that we look for, and to be honest, I look for in coaches across the board, is, are you able to engage children effectively? Can you communicate effectively with them? Do you understand that it's about them and not about you, so to speak? Because I know people that know a ton about the game, but that I wouldn't want them near my own kids. And if I don't want them near my own kids, I also don't want them near any of the kids in our program. It's not so much about soccer as it is about interacting with children. So again, this explains largely our setup of the program. All right. It is a 9-week long program. And the first week of June, we will also end with the pre-travel festival, which is a 7-a-side festival for which we'll divide players over teams, and they'll play 2 7-a-side games both Saturday and Sunday to end the experience on a positive note, to get really the idea of what it means to play 7-a-side games in a, I don't want to use the word competitive, but in a competitive environment. And that will be as at the end of the program as it is. All right. And as I said before, the participants are assessed, evaluated throughout the program. So let me, this doesn't, I don't know what I did here, but anyway, this is all that I discussed here regarding the U8 pre-travel program. All right, so the question regards to jerseys, please make sure if your son or daughter is provided with a t-shirt with a number on, that number is linked to our scoring system. So please make sure they wear those shirts. I apologize if there's any confusion on that end, Emily, but they need to wear those shirts. Over time, the coaches will get to know the players better. And I don't want players to be known just based on the number, but it helps though, as players are still moved around a bit through the program. Hopefully that answers your question. Anyone, any questions about any we discussed regarding the U8 pre-travel program as it's laid out over here? All right. All right, so we want to make sure it's a great experience for all, obviously for you, but most importantly of all for your child or children. So we're doing our best, and this town hall is a great example of it, hopefully, to communicate what we're about, why we do what we do. Your challenges, please communicate them with us as well. All right. We also do, we use a variety of means to stay in touch with you guys, whether that's via email. We seek out members for feedback at the end of every fall season, for example, through surveys. You're an important part of the experience. We want to include you as much as we possibly can. All right. Do understand that winning is very nice. I understand all that, but it's not the end all. We don't need to win, but we do want to win. But when we look at placement for each and every travel team, we want to make sure they're in a flight where, again, they're competitive, which is sometimes a challenge because, you know, as much as it isn't, it's not an exact science. We study the flights, but we're also relying on a league as well as opponents who may or may not spend as much time as we do on the placement of our teams. But again, you could win all your games. That doesn't mean you're on the right track. You could just as easily lose all your games, just a hypothetical scenario here, but you may well be developing and you may well be on the right track. This is a really important one. And one of the hardest things as a parent is to let your children take charge or to own the experience, right? Let them be the driver. Let them fall in love with the sport. Allow them a chance to fall in love with the sport. As soon as we take that away from them, they're going to become complacent. They're not going to enjoy it as much. And, you know, they're more likely to walk away from a sport like soccer, for example. All right. Commit to and enjoy the experience. right? And to sum it all up, unfortunately, this picture is a little older. On the left here, this is Lionel Messi, and next to him is Luis Suarez, good friends who used to play together at Barcelona, for those that are really involved in the game. And this is them on the sideline watching their children play in one of the youth programs at Barcelona when they were both there. No care in the world, just sitting in the sun, enjoying it and watching them play and allowing them to play. I think they're setting a good example for all of us. All right, so the question regarding how many teams will be formed and how many players per team, that varies from year to year. So we normally, a 7-a-side team normally has anywhere from 10 to 11 players. We don't want to make the rosters too big, because when you play 7-a-side, you don't want to have too many players on the side. Now, the number of teams depends on the total number of players in an academy, as well as the overall level across the board. Because you could have a year where you may not have so many players, but overall it's a very competitive group, that you may have more teams than the next year, where maybe the center of play is slightly lower and kids may not be ready for travel. I have personally not looked at the scores yet, because we barely started. But that's something, as we progress through, we may be able to answer that more clearly. But normally we have at least 3 travel teams per gender. But again, it's hard to commit to an exact number at this point. I know, Eric or Matt, if you have anything to add to that, but that was a very specific question just asked.
Yeah, I hadn't looked at the numbers yet either, as far as the number of players that are total, and then the scores. Obviously, like you said, it's way too early. I mean, ideally, we want to make sure that we place players in the right spot. So the right number of teams for the right number of players. We do have other programs that exist for players that just may not be right for teams. And we just want to be very deliberate in how we place players. So they're this early into the season, it's probably too early to say. I mean, we've had times where we've done 3 boys teams and girls teams. And then we've had times where we've gone as high as, I think, 5 boys teams. Depending on the numbers. It really depends on, as we get to the end of the season, we'll continue to gauge interest. We'll make sure just to reach out probably one more time to make sure that everyone still is interested in joining up and signing up for a team, because sometimes people will go through the academy process, get to the end of the season and decide that they may not want to. And so that impacts our numbers. And then we'll get to the end and we'll go from there. So we're not beholden to a certain number. We aren't locked in at only 2 or only 3. We'll really try to make sure that if we think is fit and appropriate for a team, that we'll find places for people.
Thank you, Eric. All right, so a very good question just asked here. Theresa asked about what intercounty is. So Charlie alluded to this earlier. Obviously, the U8 program right now is set up, the spring pre-travel program is set up to allow us to work out which players may be ready to jump into travel at U9. Now, not everyone is going to make travel at U9. That's just how it works. If you are 2014 and you don't make a travel team, you are given the opportunity, though, to take part in U9 Rec in the fall of 2022. Slightly low commitment. That is sometimes also a reason that people opt not to play travel, which Eric just alluded to, because some people may think it through or realize, hey, my son or daughter is just not ready for such a commitment as outlined earlier. But that's what's available for you in the fall. Now, from the spring of 2023 onwards, right, if you're not in travel, you can play in intercounty, which is a program in which there is some training provided through professional coaches, with games played on the weekend as well. The commitment is lower, or the commitment asked is lower. There's fewer training sessions a week, only 1 game in the weekends. The games are, generally speaking, a little more local against local teams. I would say that's the biggest difference between travel and intercounty, just the number of sessions that you take part in during the week, as well as the commitment to travel for your games. Matt and or Eric, if you want to add to that. I know, Matt, you have, I think, at least one daughter going through this right now.
Yep. Yeah, I've had 2 kids play through intercounty, and it's certainly at both the middle and the high school level, and it definitely runs the gamut. Some people are just interested in playing games, so they only show up on the weekend. It's really kind of, as Ruben said, a lower level of commitment for people that are just looking to get out there and play. The training session, there's typically one training session provided per week at a set time that you'd be training with your team. And there's not a huge emphasis, like kind of similar to the rest of our programs in terms of winning. It's more about having fun, being with your friends. So if you want to, request a specific coach, can you please group my daughter with her friends, generally, provided there's enough teams and players, those types of things can be accommodated. The one thing I will say is that our intercounty program is very popular. And if that is something that they are interested in, to sign up when the signups go up, because the signups do fill up really quick, and people tend to get waitlisted. So that is something to consider. But our intercounty program, I don't know if this was mentioned, but at U9, we have a rec program, and then the true intercounty program doesn't start till U10, where they play U10 and U11 together. So it wouldn't be for your current U8 son or daughter. It would be after next year per se. Hope that helps.
And Matt, just to clarify, it's the spring of 2023, so they would play in-town rec in
Yes,
the fall, in the
right.
spring that they would play intercounty
Absolutely.
at the U9
right.
level.
At U9,
Correct.
yes.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Also,
So-
Ruben, one thing just to point out, one additional key difference is that intercounty really focuses on games that are in the surrounding towns nearby to us, where with travel, we don't determine which brackets our teams are in, which league, we play in a specific league, but the brackets are decided by the league. And so you could have the benefit in the fall of playing against teams that are sort of nearby, but you could also end up playing teams that are farther away. And it just is sort of how the teams fall. And so, for my team, for my U10 boy, in the fall, we come in and we played against teams that were around. Now, one of our teams that we play against is in Kearney. We're playing in Roxbury. So it really, the travel itself could play a role in the commitment that comes with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if I could just add to that, Eric, so because I do see the specific question, how far away the games in travel. So our teams typically are in one of two leagues. Our travel teams are in the EDP League or the Mid-New Jersey League. I think Eric's teams are in the EDP League, but the Mid-New Jersey League, which most of our teams participate in, it's an hour or less away is generally the rule that they set is the travel times.
Yep.
EDP
I would
can be
say,
a little bit further, but generally an hour or less.
yeah, I mean, we've played games on the Mid-New Jersey side as far out as Phillipsburg, all the way out 78 on New Jersey, or down to like Wall or Brick or something like that, but generally no farther than an hour.
So that answer one of the questions asked. Victor asked how players are evaluated. So in short, there's a set format that we use every session, and players are scored from 1 through 4 in 3 different categories. 3 different categories that we believe at their age are important to look at. One is, as we highlight, decision making, which is really their ability to scan their surroundings and then make decisions based on what happens around them. So it's reading the game to some extent. I mean, we got to keep in mind that we're talking about 8-year-olds, right? 7-year-olds, sorry, for most, turning 8. But that's category 1. And again, from 1 through 4, 4 being the highest. Then we also talk about the execution of the decisions, which is really technique. Often decision-making and execution go hand in hand for those that have played. I mean, it applies to many sports, but if you've played soccer before, you make a decision and you execute it accordingly. And the third category is what we refer to as coachability. That really means, how much, I wouldn't necessarily confuse that with maturity, but we definitely look at, is a child able to listen to a coach? Is a child able to process the information that's shared with him or her? And then as I said, those are the 3 categories that we use, and that will use, that we'll get a cumulative for this specific session, and again, an average over all the sessions your son or daughter attends. Let me know, Victor, if that's sufficient, by the way. All right, so Teresa, regarding intercounty, there are no such thing as tryouts for intercounty. Intercounty is really sign up and participate. And with that also, intercounty allows you the flexibility to do just fall or just spring, because you sign up per season. Where, and Eric touched on it earlier, when you sign up for travel, it's a fall through spring commitment. So the travel teams that we're talking about forming potential for the U9s right now will be formed for the start in the fall of 2022 through the spring of 2023, which is next year. All right, intercounty allows you the flexibility to opt in or out per season, which doesn't happen with travel. It doesn't work that way with travel. All right. Anyone, any other questions? If not, our email
Ruben,
addresses.
I have two questions and we may not have that information available now, and then we can just provide it later. Is one, are we planning on doing a end of season for U8 festival like we have in the past?
Yes.
And do we have a date of when teams are going to be announced?
All right, so
And
just
how are they
touched-
going to be announced?
we touched on the festival, which is the first week of June. So what is, I think that's the 4th and 5th of June on top of my head, which is also included in the schedule on the website. And what we right now have on the website is that travel teams are announced early June as well. We haven't confirmed the actual date, but may well be at the end of that festival weekend as well. So, and that information is on the website as well.
Great, thanks, Ruben, for answering that. I apologize for missing that early in the
No, that's all
presentation.
right.
Yeah, and so I would just add to that, when travel teams are announced, typically what will happen is, we'll have the teams, if there's 3 teams we're making per gender, or 4 teams, 5 teams, 6 teams, whatever the case may be, the player, if they make a team, will get information about which team they made, but I do want to just throw out there could be some movement on some of those teams depending on accepts and declines. So some kids may end up moving up a team. No one will move down a team. So if you made, for example, the B team, when the dust settles, there's a chance your child may be moved up to the A team. Oftentimes, there's very little difference between the different players as we do the rankings of the players. So it could be, sometimes it's really close. So sometimes the B player may move up to an A team, depending on how it goes, but no B player will be moved down to a C team, that kind of thing. So just be aware of that. So there could be some movement even after teams are announced.
All right, if no one has any further questions, again, our contact information is up here as well. We want to thank you. We want to thank you for tuning in. All right.
Ruben,
If you
there's
have
one
any-
more question with
Yeah, I just saw
regards
that.
to, yep, and I can jump in. And the way that we did it last year, and we're going to try to do it again, is an invitation gets sent out to you with the team name and kind of a congratulations on making team blank. We, as a travel kind of board, a travel committee, come up with different team names each season, and we name both the boys teams and the girls teams, and so then we invite the players based off of that, and it'll come to your email. So it's just make sure you're getting emails from us consistently, so that way when this is sent, it's sent through our Demisphere system, and so it's whatever email address is in there, and then it gives you X amount of hours and where you need to respond and either accept the spot or decline the spot. And then there'll be more information that comes along with it, but it's done via email. And part of this is so that individualized notice to you as the family that is getting invited versus posting up sort of everybody's names and birthdays on the website.
All right. I think we kept everyone long enough. Thank you very much for coming on. And again, if you have any other further questions or something comes up in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you.